And Dr.
Thank you, Chairman Poe and Ranking Member Keating. I won't repeat what my colleagues have said, and I agree with much of it. And fundamentally, there's not going to be a nuclear deal like was reported in the press for reasons that my colleagues have mentioned. But I think that the very idea and the discussion that we're having is useful because it allows us and you to elucidate and think through some of the issues that are involved. I would begin by saying that the proliferation damage done by the Con network is an enormous fact. It's an enormously important fact. But at some point, the question then arises whether and when to learn from this fact and try to create new facts that are more propitious. Because if we have the status quo and what happened in the past and that becomes the future, it's not anything that any of us would welcome. Now, one way to deal with it is to propose new punishments to try to change Pakistan's behavior, but I'm not aware of anybody who suggests doing that over nuclear policy in Pakistan today, in part because Pakistan's actions to secure its nuclear arsenals and cooperate with the U.S. and the Department of Energy in that domain, which is very important for counterterrorism, has largely been positive. So what we're most worried about now is actually the expansion and future growth of the Pakistani nuclear arsenal and the implications of that for stability. So the question then is, what can and should be done to motivate Pakistan to continue to improve its controls over nuclear materials and facilities, and also to limit the growth of its nuclear arsenal? One answer is to just continue to isolate Pakistan and not deal with them. And that could go on forever as a policy. Indeed, that's the implication of a number of policies that we're practicing. The problem with that is obvious, which is if Pakistan's facing that forever, what incentives do they have to change the course they're on? So another answer is to try to offer Pakistan ways to end its isolation by building international confidence that it's managing its nuclear program to standards comparable to those of other nuclear-armed states, and that it's going to limit its nuclear forces. I think that's the objective that the Obama administration reportedly pursued. And for reasons that we've talked about, Pakistan's not going to agree to that. Now, there's another way that you could begin to pursue these objectives, and that would be to convey that no states that possess nuclear weapons outside of the Non-Proliferation Treaty, so that means Israel, India, and Pakistan, none of those states would be offered membership in the Nuclear Suppliers Group without having met criteria that the NSG would have established. And those criteria, at a minimum, would deal with the security of nuclear facilities and materials, but also could cover the non-expansion of nuclear arsenal. These NSG criteria would be established, and so only states that met those criteria could be admitted, but it also would mean that any state that did get admitted, such as India, wouldn't be able to then block any other state forever from joining, because the Nuclear Suppliers Group operates by consensus. Once India's in, as Obama's proposing, they can block Pakistan forever. And that's, in a sense, an incentive for unwelcome behavior in Pakistan. Now, my colleagues have talked about some of the reasons that Pakistan won't agree, actually, to any of the things that could plausibly be proposed. I agree with all that. The fundamental issue is that Pakistan insists upon having what India has. And Ambassador Haqqani's written books on this. His testimony is elucidating on this. And the problem here is that the nuclear deal that we made with India puts no limits on India's strategic nuclear capabilities. There's no limits on its fissile material production for weapons. There's no limits on the growth of its nuclear arsenal. There's no limits on its missile program and trajectory. And because of those reasons, the Pakistanis say, well, we want that, but the United States is never going to agree to no limitations in such an arrangement, and never the twain shall meet. So the only way to get at this problem is what Dan alluded to, is you would need a process with China, with India, with Pakistan, and the U.S., all of us dealing with not only our nuclear and missile programs, but new programs like conventional prompt global strike, the whole array of conventional and nuclear weapons that drive all of these players in this multifaceted competition. Anything less than that is not going to actually get the kind of limitations the administration is seeking. Thank you.